Hi, and welcome to the 100X Entrepreneur Book Launch webinar to celebrate the launch of our new book. Mary and I are super excited about this opportunity to introduce some of the entrepreneurs that we profiled in the book here at this launch event. Mary, it's great to be with you at this event, and it's very excited to have our guests here as well. We've got Steve Conine, the co-founder of Wayfair, Armir Harris, the founder of CharterUp, and Dane Atkinson, the founder of Odeko. I just want to say that, when Mary and I first started this book project over a year ago, we had no idea that we would be meeting so many innovative and interesting entrepreneurs. And today we're introducing you to these three incredible gentlemen, and we're going to hear about their stories. And I'm just excited about hearing some of their experiences and just getting some more detail about them. But Mary, let me turn it over to you because I think you're going to introduce them in more detail and then ask some questions.
Thanks so much, David. And thank you, everyone who's come to the meeting. We will look forward to hearing from you later in the chat. But for now, we're going to move right into as much time as possible for our fabulous 100X entrepreneur speakers. I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order, and then we're going to go into go Dane. Then we're going to go into a kind of round robin panel with just a few questions so that they have time to share their experience. I do want to have one real honest caveat here. We don't have time tonight for even like a fraction of the incredible things that our guest speakers have achieved in building, for all of them, not just this one company that went 100X, but previous companies. They have so much wisdom to share, and we're going to save some time at the end of the panel. I've asked them to think of some brief advice for everyone in the audience. But the good news is we can't cover it all tonight, but guess what? We wrote a book. So it's in the 100X Entrepreneur in a lot more detail. We spent a lot of time interviewing these founders and many more, and that's what the book has to offer. So, no, get 1 or 10, says Dane. And in that spirit, I'm going to introduce first up Dane Atkinson, who is the founder and CEO of Odeko. And I'm just going to read the mission statement, or the Odeko is the all-in-one operations partner for independent coffee shops, cafes, and other food services. But more to the point with mission, Dane has dedicated his career, and a formidable career it has been, to really empowering small business owners and building meaningful technology that will serve them and make them more able to succeed in their own small companies. And his starting model for Odeko, I have to tell this story, and I know you tell it better, Dane, but I'm going to tell it so you don't have to tell it. His starting model, which blows me away every time I think about it, was he got venture funding for being an AI-based software as a service inventory predictive system. And he listened to his early customers who said, love it, Dame, kind of like it, not love it, but it doesn't actually solve any of my massive problems with inventory as a small business owner. So Dane just like took it on himself to completely pivot the company. And now Odeko has trucks and a lot of other services end to end for operations. So I didn't steal any thunder. I'm moving on to Steve Conine, who is the co-founder with Nir Shah of Wayfair, a company we all know the brand of today. But actually, Steve and Nir started the company as CSN Stores way back in 2002. And for those of us who remember, that was a time when actually there were more skeptics about whether online retail had any future than there were ambitious young entrepreneurs who wanted to start an online retail company. So Steve and Nir thought big. They wanted to start a company that was built to last and that would someday become a global force in online retail and a household brand, but they started small with CSN stores, with one niche store at a time. And I've asked Steve to focus a little bit in the book and also tonight at in those way back days to talk about the start of CSN stores. And only last because it's last in alphabetical order is Armir Harris, who is the founder and CEO of CharterUp. And CharterUp is the first fully integrated technology platform for buses and transit management that allows consumers and customers to book, charter, as well as serves the owners of the charter vehicles and vans. And Armir's inspiring story is that he came to America with his family as a refugee from Albania as a kid,
Oh.
as he grew up working in his family's black car limo service. And in the process, he developed a love of software and an entrepreneurial mindset that set out to just transform a very fractured industry in group transport in the United States into a national and now internationally in Canada, I guess, brand. So I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm just going to say, let's move on to these questions. I'll ask the lead question and then I think I'll ask Steve to answer first, and then we'll go around. And you can interrupt each other if you want, but you can't interrupt me. How's that? Thank you. So, first question is, if you're looking back now to the start of your company, and you all started it in different times and years, I'd like you to share with us, when did you know, after you launched the company, what were the main indicators that you started to see that gave you some sense that this was a rocket ship, that you were going to be taking this company a lot further, and that it was going to be 100x success, even if you never said those words to yourself? So, Steve, can you lead us off with your memory of that?
I can. Thank you, Mary, for handing it off to me. And thank you for being so supportive of entrepreneurs over the years. I've known Mary for a long time. I think way back when we were CSN stores, we were talking in some of your classes. So she has a real excellent premonition for businesses that might do well. So yeah, we started Wayfair in 2002, which were kind of the down and out years of e-commerce. You know, internet bubble version one had sort of burst, and there were a lot of the investment had moved out of the space. But I guess my co-founder Neerj and I got really excited that it seemed as though consumers were continuing to purchase more and more online. And I think there's some really fun parallels with that time period to where we are now. You know, I think a lot of these new technologies come out, people see the vision for what they could be, but it takes a lot longer. So today, Wayfair is what investors thought might happen in, I don't know, 2004. Like, they thought it would happen very quickly. Obviously, we're in 2025 now. We're a big company. But when we started Wayfair in 2002, it was Neerj and I in a little room together. It's now the nursery that I've raised my three kids in, and we bought a little company that was doing e-commerce. It was a couple of college. It was a I don't know, mom and pop sort of college roommate sort of scenario, where the fellow was running this store, and we were like, great, we think e-commerce has potential. We think we could buy a bunch of these small microsites and get going. So we bought a small one, and from April, this was like 2002, from April to August, I basically was a tech guy. So I wrote a lot of code. And Neerj was like, we got to get a software platform. We got to build this thing, get it going, whatever. So I remember debating with him, like, we should do this with a card catalog. I don't know if the tech on the back end really matters. And he was like, Conine, just suck it up, like, build this. So anyway, we built the thing through the summer. By August, we were at the point where we had something to sell. If you're an entrepreneur, you know, I think a lot of your momentum, your success comes to, can you sell what you think is great to customers? And so in August, I would say we had our first product, and we started trying to say, okay, can we sell this? And we turned the site on, and we started advertising it. We had two sites, I should say, at the time. We had Racks and Stands and Smart Tech Toys. We started advertising it. And pretty soon, like, you know, the phones rang and people call us, oh, yeah, no, what are you interested in? Thanks for calling CSN Stores, whatever. And and it was okay. We're like, okay, we sort of maybe have something. And then I went away. I remember, telling her, like, I'm going to work my ass off this summer. When after, September 1st, I want to take a break. Like I got a week of vacation plan. I'm going to go do it. So I left him alone. And when I get back from that week of vacation, he was just like frantic. He was like, Steve, I can't keep up with the phones. Like, thank God you're back. He's like, you need to work the phones. And so like right pretty quickly we realized we had something you could sell. And I guess the thing with that is like once you have something you can sell, it starts this very nice virtuous cycle of sort of customers you're talking to. They give you ideas. You then fix things they're telling you. You add things they're telling you they want, and then your suppliers start telling you things because of course you're starting to sell stuff they care about. And so it starts this very virtuous cycle. And I remember, like I'd be laying in bed and this room was across the whatever hall from my bedroom. Phones would be ringing in the middle of the night. I'd be like, I should really get up and get that. We need the revenue. But like more than anything, that early on, we got some momentum. And this is small. Like, we do in a minute what we did in a month back then. But like those little wins and that little bit of momentum we got early on, I guess gave us the inclination that like, oh, we have something, it'll sell. There's an opportunity here.
Wow.
So that's it.
Thank you. Those
Mhm.
are details I didn't even know at the time about the middle of the night phone ringing. So thank you, Steve. And Armir, let's move on to your memory of starting CharterUp and when you had that inkling and when you started to feel it was really growing in a way that was going to take off.
Yeah, of course. So my story starts when I was a teenager. My family had, as you mentioned, a black car service. So I got to know the customer at a very, very early age, and I understood the customer very well. I also understood the operations side of the market very well. Fast forward to CharterUp, I was in the bus industry the whole time. Even when I was in college, I was helping out the family business. I started off on my own shortly after college, but we started CharterUp about a year before the pandemic, and we were building the product. We were building the product, and we launched right before the pandemic. We launched right before the pandemic, and we had some good proof points. And then March 2020 happened, and there was about like a 98% negative demand shock in the market. People just did not want to get in an enclosed capsule with 55 other people, and it was a very difficult time for us. And one of my recommendations to people is that frugality and resourcefulness really breeds innovation. So we're very resource constrained, bootstrapped, and I said, listen, I don't want to live life with regrets. If demand comes back, I want us to be in a pole position to really win and accelerate this market. And if demand doesn't come back, then we're going to have just much bigger problems in the world. So we leaned into the technology and we started integrating all these bus companies across the country. And they were just like scratching their heads. There's no demand. Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to integrate us into your platform? So we integrated all of them, and then demand started to pick up many months after. But the real acceleration hit after we proved repeatability beyond our first market. So two things clicked at once. One was instant availability and instant pricing, which was a first in the market. And the other one was live tracking. So these things build enough trust to convert enterprise grade demand. And then we also reached supply density to a point where fulfillment rates and on-time performance consistently improved with every new customer. From there, monthly bookings really began compounding, and each city revamped much, much faster than the last or the prior city. So the single most important indicator that I wasn't saying this at the time, but made me realize that we could scale 100x was really improving the unit economics with density. So as we expanded, LTV to CAC really kept improving, and operational metrics, acceptance rate, on-time performance, NPS score got better both on the demand side and on the supply side. We're a two-sided marketplace, and with each market, we could reach the prior market's 1 year run rate in a fraction of the time. And this was really driven by organic and partner loops rather than paid markets and cohorts really retained and expanded. So that's when I knew the model would really be able to scale, and we were going to have escape velocity.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Dane, you waited very patiently, so let's hear when you knew that there was going to be escape velocity.
It's really great to actually get to wait because you can color in those gaps. Thank you. And thanks, Mary
Nice.
and David, for making content for founders. It is seemingly lacking out there. So I have PTSD from product market fit. The company prior to Odeko, Sumall, we'd grown 500,000 users, but we didn't actually have a business model because we found something they liked, but they weren't necessarily going to pay for, and it was a mess. So when we started Odeko, you already told the story where we had an approach and the charisma of the founders and everything. We were making money and it was kind of going right, but we knew that we hadn't really solved the problem. So the first symptom for me was I called one of our customers, leaving this office actually, and was just saying like, hey, what if we actually just delivered things to you versus predicting them and ordering them? Like, well, we'll just open up your store and load it in. And his reaction was off scale. Like it was like you could just feel the visceral, like, oh shit, you would do that? And like that's a Duncan level kind of thing to do. And so in my gut, I knew that that was probably a good sign. But no one else believed me. They're like, why would you leave a SaaS digital world and get a truck? Which I promise anyone out there don't do. It's a nightmare. Real stuff. I'm sure as I see Steven's laughing, it's a nightmare. But we did. And then I'd say the second thing that's really important to think about from a founding standpoint is when it actually works, it really works. I've hit it a few times in my life, and it sounds like Amir and Steven have as well. Like it just grew. You can't hide it. You can't fake it. You can, the charismatic CEO can sell a lot of it, but you can't actually show that inflection. I think we went from, we grew 40x in the first year. It was just something that you couldn't miss because we'd found that right fit and we found the way for the customer to like enjoy it and embrace it. And when you actually get onto it, it's real. And it's like one of those things like when you fall in love, really, you really know, but you're so hungry to fall in love before that, you make everything feel right. Like it's kind of waiting for the right apartment. It's waiting for the right thing. So just as a signal to those out there building, constantly looking for that actual moment that isn't just you hoping it is, but you're starting to see that flywheel really going.
And Dane also gives relationship advice on the side, if anyone is.
Apparently,
And
long
Dane,
founding advice.
that,
It's the same
like,
thing.
I love this sort of like, I mean, there's a lot of people want to software their way out of anything, but like operational businesses are really cool. And if you can get the pairing of software expertise with operations, it resonates with me when you say that.
It's hard, but it's really magic for them, right? Because and that's where we knew we could sell software. What they didn't want was software. What they want was a result, and it required us to do the stupid thing and get a truck. Yeah.
Any other comments before you get your next question, guys? Thank you. You shared that story, all of you, very powerfully, and that moment, I think, came through. And I love that you can't fake it. I love that statement. When it's really exponential, when it's really accelerating, there's it's not vaporware anymore. It's like real. The customers are there. They want it. They buy it. So I'm going to take us to the other end of the cycle now when it's 2025. You are 100x entrepreneurs. Congratulations again on that achievement. And one of the things that everyone is talking about, but very few people are doing, frankly, in a strategic way, is using AI to further accelerate and also to enhance and improve experiences for clients and customers instead of just talking about AI. Actually doing AI. And I have talked to you enough to know that you are and have been over time thoughtfully implementing when it wasn't even called generative AI, but machine learning and analytics and data. And data has been very important to your growth cycle in every part of your companies. So I'd like you to talk about that because I think that's a really important reality check. The difference between just talking about AI and how great it's going to be in 4 years. It's always going to be great in 4 years. And what you did initially and what you are doing now to leverage data and AI strategically across your organization. So maybe Armir, this time, if it's okay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mary. Um, so AI, I look at AI as our flywheel, and we really use it in across our business. AI is our product. It's in our product. So there's a few areas we use this in. One is, so we're fully integrated with our supply side. So we have over 700 bus operators on our platform, making us essentially the largest bus company in the world. We call this our virtual fleet. All these bus operators use our software to run their entire business. So we are their system of record, and we have real-time availability. Where really we use AI is around predictive analytics. So we're able to predict supply demand by city, by time, and by vehicle class. And this really allows us to optimize pricing and optimize conversions and margins for our customers, as well as optimize pricing guidance to the demand side, all the 700 plus companies across our platform. Also, for these bus operators, one of the biggest issues that prevents them from scale is the variability in demand. We're able to really, it's a capital intensive business. Each bus costs around $600,000 to $700,000, a big motor coach. So we're able to really stabilize the demand and give them much better visibility and forecast into the business. So that's a big area. The other area is around our operational quality. So we build compliant duty schedules with AI and optimize routes that are able to really protect the drivers and their DOT hours. At the same time, we're also able to reduce deadhead. So we have these, bus companies all across the country. If you request a bus on demand, or if it's pre-scheduled well ahead of time, there's this thing called deadhead, which is really the distance that a bus travels to a passenger when it's empty. So we're able to use AI to match the lowest price and the lowest operator to the customer. We also use AI to continuously score trips. So we're able to keep track of every bus company. What percentage of the time are they late? What percentage of the time, are they on time? Are they late by 5 minutes, by 10 minutes, by 15 minutes, right? And we're able to integrate other risk factors such as traffic and weather conditions. We're also able to pre-swap assets before any failure or any incidents of failure. And it's really allowed us to manage the largest bus company in the world with a relatively lean and efficient operations team. And the outcome is really much fewer service incidents, higher on-time performance, and a rising NPS as our business continues to scale.
Great. And I know for a fact there's even more, but thank you for the highlights of that. And maybe we'll have time to get into the even more uses of AI and CharterUp as we move along. And Dane, you started with AI. You should be ready to answer this question. You're next.
Yeah, I might have a contrarian answer to it. So we did start as an AI. AI is a bit of a lie. It was a machine learning loop on a laptop that predicted the future, but it worked great, and it was enough to get really accurate in our ordering. And we still have a lot of that in our system. Same thing as Amir, like we have inventory to predict, and we've got some cycles that we can sort of use to make ourselves better. And it is mostly machine learning loops still at this point. I feel like a steward of small business, and it's really hard right now trying to figure out where AI is actually productive for the community. Because there's this, like, we get in our boardroom, like, where's your AI strategy? We want 25. It's like, we know it has utility. We've seen it have utility. There's a certain pressure that I think creates negative outcomes. And our small businesses are in the same place. Like, what do they use and how do they use it? So we've built like LLM training robots that the barista can argue with to see what a bad customer is like. And we build scheduling AIs. And there's some, just as a cautionary tale for everybody, I think the narrative AI sells very well. Small business and big business think they need to buy AI. AI used in discrete exploits works incredibly well. Generalized systems we haven't really hacked to make terribly productive. And I think going back to like the ancient day where Steve and I were there, where like everything was going to be internet and it's going to be great. Everyone believed it, and then it crashed. And then everything became internet after like 70% of the companies disappeared on that burst. there is an arc. These things will work out. It's going to be amazing. I just fear over leveraging the tool stack today can be complicated. But where it works, it's really interesting. Sorry,
Well,
Mary.
thank you.
I probably gave you a different answer a few months ago because we're constantly trying to figure this whole thing out, but it is an interesting time.
It is an interesting time. And, this is why I'm so excited to talk to you all live because it's volatile. I talked to you for the book in book time way back in 2025 and I think Armir, we first talked in even last year. So, so much changes. And I want to hear what it looks like today. And all of the people in the audience want to hear what it really looks like today. And yeah, I'm not going to contradict you or argue back, Dane, because like when I talk to small businesses, they want to have AI, they desperately want to be using AI, but they don't have any like real value that they can count on. And that's very different from how CharterUp approached AI, which is to really integrate it into your entire system in extremely critical strategic ways. And so, Steve, I know you're a numbers guy from way back, so I want to hear your ideas about, where AI is today and how you've used leverage data over the years at CSN and then Wayfair.
Yeah. And Dane's comments resonate. So I'm hoping I can bring it all back around. I'm not sure I put it together in my head quite right, but we're all kind of figuring a lot of this stuff out together right now. So I would just start answering this by saying, like, look, we have been a very tech forward company. And I would say there are companies in the world that purchase technology and put the technology execution risk on others. And historically, retail is very much that type of business, where if you're Target back in the day, or I don't know, Woolworths or Macy's, you're buying technology from consulting firms. They're hedging their risk. They're giving you a solution that's pretty safe. If you're Amazon, you're pushing the bleeding edge and you're reaping the benefits of that. And so Wayfair has always tried to do that, right? We try to take the technology risk in-house and like actually push it to the bleeding edge and get the benefits of that. So historically, we use a lot of machine learning. I mean, you can imagine in our operation, pricing matters. I'm sure you guys all shop retail. You can't imagine a world where people say, I want to pay more, right? So like we're trying to run a very efficient operation. Pricing matters, advertising matters. Like those are highly analytic domains where like a huge amount of data helps. A lot of competitive data, a lot of whatever insights of conversions and comparability and substitution clusters matter. Great for machine learning, right? So historically, we were very heavy into that. Okay, so AI comes around recently, the last 4 years, and I've been in this business for a while. I feel like I've seen these cycles, the internet and whatever, blockchain, and now you got AI. So AI today, an analogy I've been using in my team is this. When I was a kid in the 70s, microwaves came out, right? They were a new thing. My mother bought one. She brought it to the house. Oh, it's fantastic. It comes with this whole recipe book of things you could do in the microwave. And we were microwaving hams and turkeys and eggs and stuff that just like, I mean, it works, it's edible, but it's not good. And today, we all own microwaves, right? We all use them on a daily basis, but we know what to use a microwave for. It's like, it's a set of things that it works really well for. AI is there today. Like we're at the point where like, we're still figuring out what we should be using it for, right? So from our world, the things we use it for that work, catalog quality, it's great at looking at images, describing what's in the image and like comparing that to what's right. Legal efficiency, fantastic. Coding efficiency, quite good at that. Self-help HR tools, pretty good at that. Creating inspirational imagery in our catalog, yeah, it's pretty good for that. The things where it's like microwaving a ham, it's like data analytics or anything that's like requires precise, repeatable answers, it is terrible at it. And it like literally go into ChatGPT right now and say, what time is it? It'll tell you it's 15 minutes ago. It won't know what time it is. So like not good at that. Multi-step agentic processes, they're still not good at it. So as a company, we've really tried to figure out like, how do we do the things that we're seeing it's really good at? You bring those into the organization, use those, and then how do we avoid the things where it's a waste of time, it's a waste of effort, it's a waste of investment. And so we've been working at it that way. I think LLMs are they're a great new tool. They have a lot of potential. they likely will accelerate the next big tech discovery, but I don't think they're going to be the thing that kills humanity or whatever. I think that they're a really neat tool, and we're using them heavily. I think the biggest risk for companies is to just keep their head in the sand and not pay attention to what's going on. And if you do that, well, good luck. Like that's going to be a tough track to take.
Thank you. And we have time to go around. Armir, you want to make any follow-up comments or?
So in the mobility space, I'm very excited about autonomous. One of the things that we're working on are, so we operate some of the largest transit and shuttle programs in the country, transit, airports, universities, campuses, and autonomous to me is the next frontier. Very excited about this. We're working on putting software in where these agencies won't have to re-platform their whole tech stack, and they'll be able to pilot autonomous shuttles. So we're partnering with several autonomous operators, and that's just very, very exciting. So I think robotics is the next frontier, and coupling that with our current businesses is just very exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
And thank you all for being so candid about this because, I put this question in deliberately to say, I want to ask the smartest people in the room what's, I want to ask the people who have already succeeded and figured things out. Well, what do you think is happening with AI? What are you using it for? And this has been like really helpful series of responses. And Steve, I think you did kind of bring it back around. I love it. Never thought about the microwave, but yeah, we were microwaving ham and it tasted terrible. And we don't do that anymore. And so, but there's still microwaves in every kitchen. So it also didn't go away. And I think that's the lesson of the internet for me, of e-commerce. And it's the coming lesson of AI. There's probably, likely, almost certainly going to be a shakeout and a crash and a lot of disillusionment with AI. It's kind of overdue given what's happening in the market, but nonetheless, the value is persistent and it's going to be real, especially in certain kinds of industries and companies. And Armir, I love you're bolder than many of us when you think that it's finally time for autonomous vehicles taking the road. But it's going to happen, and it's part of the risk that entrepreneurs are willing to take. So with all that said, I can imagine that the people in the audience are just bursting with questions because we could really, we could learn so much tonight if we only had the next 12 hours, but we don't. I know what time it is because I'm looking at like 3 clocks here simultaneously. And we're moving into the phase where we are going to take some audience questions, but not until I ask each of our speakers here to give some advice. It doesn't have to be just like one cliche, okay? I would like it if it were not just, the obvious advice. And I think you've already shown, all 3 of you, that you break through those walls. You're not going to just talk about like, oh yes, we'll have this, this one piece of advice and everything will be well. It's fine to say there's no magic bullet. It's fine to say how damn hard it is to be a successful entrepreneur, because we all know that. And it's good to remind people who maybe are still haven't experienced that. But it's time for the wrap up of this section of the meeting. I'm going to ask everyone to just think about the people in the audience. They're founders who are already running small businesses or maybe large businesses. They're also people who are, I know because some of them are my students, they're studying entrepreneurship and they haven't gotten their feet wet yet. And they're also thinking about starting a business maybe as an alternative to a career that isn't going where they want to. So a lot of people with a lot of different positions, and there's no one answer. So having said all that and made your life even harder, I want This time, Dane, I am going to start with you. I'd
Sure.
like to, I'd like you to just share, from the heart, brain, and experience, what advice do you give people when they ask you for advice about being an entrepreneur and how to be a successful one?
So yeah, I think I'm going to change my sort of standard answer. I'll give that really quickly. It is super hard, all that kind of stuff, but you do grow as a human in an insane way, and it's often forgotten that it's actually a long journey. This is my like 30th company. It doesn't always happen instantly. It takes forever. You just got to keep on pushing at it, and you will find things. I think the thing that's different now is to flip my other point, I do think AI is going to change things hugely. And every time we do a whiteboard, we're like, oh, I don't see why OpenAI can't do this in 6 months because why not, right? Like the theory of general intelligence, I think it's better. It's hard. So I would say now it's a bit different being an entrepreneur, and the need to get even closer to the customer is probably more prevalent because that understanding and defensibility will let you kind of, and I love what Amir said, like find platforms that are agnostic that you can kind of switch things up, finding ways to solve problems really leanly, really thinly, bringing joy to a customer cohort, building a reputation is probably at least the advice I give myself if I was time traveling in some sort of weird fashion, like on how to navigate this next cycle of things, because the truths are still going to be there. It's still going to be hard, still everything else. But you now have to contend with, in my generation, it was like, oh, Google could destroy your business. And that was like the one thing, but they couldn't actually get to everything. Now it's a little more, yeah, they might get to everything. So how do you take advantage of the opportunity to build in 2 seconds, but still find, long-term viability?
Wonderful. Thank you. Amir, what's your advice to people who come to you looking for advice or the people you wish would ask you for advice?
Yeah, there's a lot. One is you constantly have to evolve as an entrepreneur, especially if you're 100xing the business. What works in one stage may not work in another stage, right? So I remember when we had up to 20 people, 30 people, I was really, really hands-on. And then we scaled to over 200 people, and I realized I've got to become an industrial psychologist. I really have to make a lot of effort to become an industrial psychologist here because it's about the people at that point, and I just can't have my focus everywhere. A few other things. One is don't get distracted by competitors or trends. It's really about the customer. Start with the customer and work backwards from there. One thing is we bootstrapped the business. I started with $800, and now we're doing a lot. We're doing hundreds of millions in revenue within a few years, and it was really this frugality and resourcefulness that, as I mentioned, breeds innovation. To me, resourcefulness or resource constraints really force creativity. So my advice to entrepreneurs is learn to embrace resourcefulness. Um, then the other thing is really have an obsession. Obsessive. You need to have an obsessive passion and an unhealthy level of optimism because it's really hard. You're going to face many, many obstacles. We've pivoted so many times, right? There's no work-life balance that doesn't exist. So if you don't have this obsessive passion about the business and this almost delusional optimism, it's going to be very hard to keep driving, and you're going to face obstacles, and you're just going to have to learn to break through every single obstacle. That's what entrepreneurship is about, and the executive team, leadership team, and all your team around you has to start embracing that mindset. That's how you break through ceilings. So those are my advice to entrepreneurs or going to be entrepreneurs.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And Steve, it may not be the last word because we may take just 30 seconds to go back if anyone has a final thought, but I'd love to hear your advice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could just say what those two said and drop the mic. They hit a lot of the stuff I would say. I mean, bootstrapping, we bootstrapped Wayfair. Scarcity helps. Don't get paranoid about competitors who raise a lot of money. Just stick to your knitting. And, oftentimes you will, when we have run into troubles at Wayfair is when we have not listened to scarcity or when we have been unconstrained on scarcity. Everything starts small. Don't underestimate compounding. Don't get discouraged early. just, momentum matters. Learn from your customers, competitors, partners. The momentum that if you can get sales, that is key. I would say focus matters. If you don't get distracted. I think tied to that is like value other people's time more than your own, like build a culture where like time matters and urgency matters, focus matters. Total addressable market matters. Like if you want to get big, and this is a discussion you should have around your goals, but if you want to get big, the market you're going into, you should think about that because it's hard to get big in a small market. Tied to that, your goals matter. I think, through time, I've checked off goals I've had, and it's important to set the next set of goals for yourself. A lot of times that gives you clarity on what you're shooting for. Entrepreneurship, as Armir and Dane have both said, is a lot about convincing others to follow you and to give you their time. And I give you two quick thoughts on that. There's one saying my father always used to say is, do they love me or do they not? They told me yesterday, but I forgot. So you're leading a team, keep that in mind, right? And the day you decide to not love them, you have to let them go because you're not doing them any benefit and you're not doing yourself any benefit or the team any benefit. And so that is a simple piece of advice that stuck with me for over the years. I guess I'd just leave it at
that. Okay, because these are the people we wanted to hear from. We want to get the questions from the audience, and David is gearing up for that. I just want to go around one quick time and say, all of you, Steve, Armir, Dane, is there anything you wish I had asked or that you had an opportunity to say before we go into answering specific questions all over again? If I've made you speechless, I apologize.
Oh no, we can talk forever.
I know that, Dane.
I think you did a good job.
Any one thing you wanted to add before we go into the audience?
I think you did a very good job, like keeping us on point and keeping us very, I think we covered a lot of surface area.
Good. Well, I loved it. I learned a lot. And you know what? I will say again, I'm inspired about the potential of entrepreneurship every day, not because I'm a 100X entrepreneur, but because of all the amazing people I get to teach, mentor, meet, and in this book, really dig in some in-depth conversations. So thank you, but we're not done yet because now we have the promised audience part, and that's back to you, David, to surface some of the questions that have been coming up in the chat.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, we've got some questions here and really inspired by some of the comments you guys have made. And we might dig into a few of those ideas a little bit deeper, some of these questions. But I've got a question from Kendra asking, was there a difficult decision or a shift that you had to make that was hard to do at the time, but made a big difference in the business?
And we'll leave this open field. Anyone want to jump in?
I'll go, since I seem to go last every time. Every decision's hard. Like the ones that are hard are the ones that matter. In Odeko, we had to cut the company in half because we got a business model and then COVID came. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have been around. And then we had to suddenly swing from trying to be hyper growth to hyper profitability and reshape the company again. And our board thought that we were totally crazy because we got a truck. And why would you do that? And I literally had to like sneak a truck and sneak a warehouse and pretend it wasn't happening until you got to like, it's all hard choices. Those are good signs. The harder it is, the better the sign that you're actually onto something.
And I would say like the difficult choices are the ones you delay. Like they're the ones you just, almost in hindsight, you're always like, I should have just done it, learned from it, and gone on. And if I made a wrong decision, great, I'll live with that. I'll fix it. I'll do the next decision. But it's those ones that you just like, grind over where either you feel like you know the answer or you're not quite vague on the answer or you want to find more information about the answer. And it's just like if you just, in hindsight, if you just make decisions, make a choice, move on, learn from it, and just, that's how I would summarize.
Armir, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, every decision is hard. For us, pivoting was a decision that we made several times, and every time we were in a good growth trajectory. And once we pivoted, we were able to make step function changes. So at the time, while making the decision, it seemed like we were taking on a lot of risk. and every time it felt like we were going to fail. But then in hindsight, it ended up playing out well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Our next question kind of moves away from strategy and back to each of you individually a little bit. So the question is from Gerard. What was the biggest lesson you learned about yourself and around overcoming obstacles and dealing with the growing pains in the business? Anybody want to start with that one?
I mean, that's a pretty broad topic. I guess I generally, yeah. I mean, biggest lesson I learned about myself, like as a young entrepreneur, I would say you wrestle with how big do I want to get this and how risky do I want to be with it. And then as a mid-age entrepreneur, you're sort of like, okay, I've gotten over that. I now know I know my risk profile. I know how big I want to grow it. And you sort of, I guess you wrestle with like, I don't know, as you start to have some success, like what do I value in life? And how do I want to spend my time? Part of what appeals to me about entrepreneurship is like you are ultimately in control of your time. You get to pick what you get to do every day. And so like you're then the only one to blame if and you get to pick who you work with. And if you think about, the waking hours of your life, it's like most of the people you work with are the people you pick. And so if you're the entrepreneur, you get to pick who you work with, you get to pick where you spend your time, you get to prioritize all that stuff. And I think like, I guess as a young entrepreneur, I didn't appreciate it. As I've gotten older, I really appreciate that. Like I like being in control of that and like having a say around that and feeling as though I am in control of my time and who I spend time with, what I invest my efforts in.
Yeah. From my perspective, who you work with really matters. Team chemistry is very important. And the biggest lesson that I learned is that really build a house that you want to live in. That's really important. We spend a lot of time in our business. Build a house you want to live in. Culture is very important, and just because someone is not a cultural fit doesn't mean they're not a great person. It may just mean, hey, you this isn't the right person that you want to scale with. So that is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned.
I'm going to jump in on the Stephen's point that there are variations of lessons you learn, and that's kind of one of the wonderful things about being an entrepreneur is that you can't escape them. When you mess it up, the mirror says you messed it up, and so it's great for development. I think one of the things that was really big when I just started out in this journey was I thought I had to be good. I really needed to like the imposter syndrome thing is no damn joke, and it took a long time to realize I suck. It's okay. I can actually suck at like 98% of things as long as 2% are there. And there's this weird thing as a young founder where you're like, and I mess up so many companies and so many chapters where I would micromanage and get in on things and they would scream down the hall, Dane is coming. And then to pretend to work because, they thought I was there. And it took a long, long time. So for all those out there who are just starting, I think just feeling like you have to control it less and own it less and just be the owner of the story and get people, as I said earlier, excited to follow you. That's enough. You don't have to actually do everything.
Wow, some great answers there. Our next question is from Ted, and I'm just going to paraphrase his question a little bit, and it's about partnerships. So some of you are co-founders, some of you are individual founders. Like, what are the pros and cons about having a co-founder or being in a partnership as a founder, or kind of being a solo founder yourself? And how do you kind of think about the partnership model as in your own life and maybe as a way to give advice to entrepreneurs?
So I'm a co-founder. Dane or Armir, are you like, what are we all? I'm not even familiar with what you're.
I'm the primary founder.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a quasi solo founder, but I usually start with like 10, 20 people now.
Okay. So I've worked with the same fellow for 30 years. And it has been, I mean, for me, it's been dramatically beneficial. I think I also appreciate that it is a sort of probably a bit more of a rare setup. I mean, in this panel, I guess I would be sort of the outlier. There's if you can find someone who's very complementary skills to you, but you also value their contributions and you have a similar sense of the ground truth, I think it can work very well. But you need to know how to communicate, and you need to. It's difficult when you like link your financial health to another person, it's a different relationship, and it's marriage would be the close. I've been married for 25 years now, I guess, and it's a similar sort of dynamic to that. But in a business context, there's obviously, I would say, a much broader set of things you might do or say that are, I don't know, things you end up having to discuss that are different than a family relationship. Um, but it's worked really well for me.
For the audience member, I would say, like, Stephen, you're really, really rare, having been like a mentor forever. Usually when people come and say like that sentence, I don't have an appropriate partner, it's a point where you want to find a really healthy way to separate, because there's a long journey, it's a marriage, and if you're phrasing it that way, it may not be the best long-term fit. It happens, but it's rare. And you find that
Yeah.
dynamic that you can make the marriage work continuously, then it's magical.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I don't know that you need to find that. Like, don't hold yourself to that bar, because like if you happen to find it, great, it works out. That's been my journey. But like, yeah, it's not the only. I mean, it's the less proven path, I guess, maybe.
Armir, any thoughts on that? Partnerships?
Yes, I've got a slightly different perspective. I completely agree with what Dane said. By the way, if this partner isn't appropriate, then you have to learn to part ways in a healthy way, right? That's really the best outcome for everyone. But personally, I look at my entire executive team as partners, right? And if I make sure that everyone is I have good chemistry with everyone, and as a team, we are all in partnership and we're all aligned. So I think that's very important.
That's great.
Yeah, Armir, I really love that too, because like I think there's top down, control, like command and control sort of organizations, and that works maybe well in the military. But most of the successful entrepreneurial organizations I've seen don't, like, they're the antithesis of that, or they have a very open communication structure where the culture is such that people can raise up issues and all can feel like they're participating in the organization.
Correct, exactly.
Powerful. We've got a question from Brandon about competition. His question is, in the early days of your business, what competitor threat did you fear most? And I guess I ask you just to comment on competition in general in those early days, because there's this thought, the school of thought that, hey, we think a lot about the competition and we build our product against that, or we totally ignore competition because we know the right thing to do and we're listening to customers and we're going on our own path. How do you kind of think about competition, and how did you think about it during those early days, especially?
Yeah, I can kick it off. The one thing that I'd say that I learned is don't focus on competition. It can be a big distraction. And you really have to focus on the customer, as I mentioned. Focus on the customer and work your way backwards for the customer. And one of the phrases that I communicate to the entire company is that for us, the biggest competitor is time. That's what I say. The biggest competitor is time. Our time on earth is finite, right? You want to make the most of your time. And this is how I get the team to not focus on competition and just focus on accelerating growth and looking at time as your biggest competitor, and really creating a sense of urgency and creating an amazing product with a sense of urgency.
Powerful. Anybody else?
So Odeko is fortunate, doesn't really have one, but when I was doing Squarespace, we did have competitors that were more clearly identified. And I agree, like the focus on it wasn't healthy, but the advantage of having a competitor you could use as a benchmark to push your team and be excited about trying to get out there, and then navigating. Actually, Stephen, you probably have the best answer for all of us. Like, you're in a very crowded universe, but for us was like, how are we totally different? Like, how can we be design? We were all about being beautiful versus about, flexibility or speed or something else, and that helped a ton. So we were cognizant of it. If you're in a very competitive landscape.
Yeah, retail is very crowded. When we started Wayfair, I remember thinking like Walmart was our biggest competitor in 2002. I guess if you're starting a company today, you said like, hey, we're going to go straight up against Google, or we're going to go straight up against, I don't know, Facebook or Microsoft. That's a bold statement, but at the same time, like, those companies have the biggest Achilles heels. And I guess like we looked at our space, and then there's some element of like, don't worry about your customer, or don't worry about your competitor, worry about your customer, right? And so it was like, well, can we do slightly better than what Amazon or Walmart or whoever is providing to them today can do? And if you're like, yeah, we have an edge on this, we're like, yeah, in this particular category, we can crush what they're doing, then great, you have an opportunity. And so like that's just like the creative destruction that entrepreneurship causes, I guess, is part of it. So it's like you need to be aware of your competitor, but I think having a competitor that you feel you can outmatch is great. And that, you know, in a lot of spots, that's where entrepreneurs do very well, by picking businesses that are pretty traditional and that actually do have competitive, you know, dynamics. And so we didn't focus a lot on it. We really focused on customers and like how are we differentiated vis-a-vis the existing offerings.
Yeah, that's great insight.
And
Mary, do we
David,
have
I'm
time
going
for
to be
one
the
more?
timekeeper and just like one more short question.
One more short question.
Not a
Great.
philosophical question.
There's a question from Monica, and it's about globalization. How do you think about globalization with your business? Does it affect you either from a workforce engaging workers internationally or customers, distribution? How do you kind of think, and when did you kind of think more, you know, globally in your business, if at all?
Well, and then who of us is virtual? Like we've gone basically back to office. Are you, Dane, you're largely in office? Armir, I mean, it's quasi okay. Oh, yeah, I mean, the service you deliver, I guess, is very physical. Well, it's also very apropos for me. We shut down our German business at the beginning of this year.
Huh.
And so we had a big German business. We had a UK. We still have a huge presence in the UK. We're actually a dominant player in the UK. But you know, gosh, like I don't know that international workforces is something you should really be considering until you're, I don't know, $1 billion business. Like it's not something that's relevant until you're quite large. And then it's like a very different business than an entrepreneurial business. It's much more, I mean, it's a very different dynamic. And when you get to that point, I mean, it's the same when you hire people in the US, you're trying to hire great people who are motivated or excited to work with you and understand the culture. And when you hire internationally, it's the same thing. Like you're trying to find those people. It's just harder because you're not there to like work with them every day and see them and motivate them. And also, when you show up in a new market, you're the new guy. And the best people in that market are working for great companies and they have great jobs and they don't want to just jump over and jump to the new guy. So it takes a minute or years usually to get great talent when you're hiring in a remote office. And it doesn't matter if it's in India or you know Germany or in I mean Salt Lake City or you know wherever you're going, it's a very similar dynamic, if my experience.
Yeah, I would agree with Stephen there. You really don't have to worry about that until you reach a certain scale, really an international scale. And for us, we operate services beyond the United States, and most of our team is in the U.S. I would say that early on, when you start out, there's a significant cost arbitrage advantage. If you want to, I started out with a few developers and designers in Asia, and it was at a fraction of the cost as if I hired in the U.S. and I just couldn't afford U.S. employees at the time, or building a U.S. team. So early on, there's a significant cost arbitrage, but it's really hard to build culture. It's hard to you know, really build that chemistry, and the time zone difference just sucks. You know, waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, or staying up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I certainly wouldn't advise. Yeah.
That's great. Dane, any thoughts on that one?
I did early because my ego wanted me to do it, and it was a disaster. Don't do it. And then when I did it with teams, it was much better. My only learning there was have somebody that you can trust to own the office in those locations. That worked for Latin America and Europe and whatnot. Every time we just try to scatter hire or go to the market, it was a shit show.
That's great. Well,
I'm going
amazing
to
answer.
just have one last word here before we go to David for the wrap up with the final slide, which is, wow, thank you. This has been amazing. My mind is exploding all over again. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your joining us, taking the time live to update us and really tell it like it is, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for me too. I really appreciate all your insights. Just some of the comments you made here today. I was taking detailed notes, and I hope our audience was too, because you gave a lot of great insights. I'm just going to wrap it up with a couple of thoughts about the book, just to remind our audience. Great. So there's just a few ways to continue to connect with the 100X Entrepreneur movement as Mary and I are working on this. So you can contact us at the 100xentrepreneur.com, our website. There's some free downloadable resources there. There's a self-assessment about basically helping you figure out if you're ready to scale, like some of the companies in our book. So feel free to go to the website, download that. You can subscribe to the 100X Entrepreneur podcast on Apple and Podbeam and Spotify. You can, of course, buy the 100X Entrepreneur book, Stories of Extreme Growth, on Amazon. And you can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we are super grateful that you've taken the time to join us for this conversation. Thank you very much. And thank you again to our guests and for all your insight. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye, everyone.